Good morning, everyone. This is Leslie Polk, your Chief Happy Officer, here with your Hear Your Truth Tuesday. And today's topic is yes, Black people do that too. As we go through Black History Month, I want to make sure that we are talking about um, us, really, but also to bring awareness to how we think about things, especially with mental illness. When we have anxiety, depression, it's easy to fall into the, no one feels the way I feel place. And when you're in that place, it's hard to see, for lack of a better way of putting it, the actual reality. Because again, I've said this before, I've said this lots of times, I still, say it to myself to remind myself that, your perception is your reality. And that's sometimes where we get stuck, because when we're in that depression place and when we're feeling the anxiety, when we're not wanting to when we have the social anxiety, when we don't want to engage, and we've all repeatedly said how much COVID has exacerbated that, then we tend to stay in our own little bubble. What's great, though, about the internet is that you can still stay in your bubble and still expose yourself to all of these other opportunities and these reminders that you're not alone. And that's true for really anything. We're going to focus mostly on this conversation really about those of us, people of color, going outside of ourselves to do the things we want to do. Again, that also falls, do you have the motivation to do it? That's a whole other topic, it's a whole other show, it's a whole other thing. So today we're just talking about um, reaching for those dreams that you have. Now, some people that grew up with me and people who knew me from junior high school knew I was Debbie the second, so Debbie too, because I wanted to be like Debbie Allen. I wanted to be a triple threat, and because she can sing, dance, and act, and that was my bar. And when I was growing up, that was pre-internet, so you your examples were pretty much what you saw on television, in movies. If you read books, which I read some books, I always say I learned how to read after that. So what you saw in books, what you heard people talking about, if you had a mentor or a teacher that saw something in you that kind of guided you, that was helpful too. But we didn't have as much access to the variety that young people have today. So a lot of times when I was growing up, you heard people wanting to be celebrities, they wanted to be sports athletes, they wanted to be teachers or nurses. So that was pretty much the high bar. Or if you get a government job, you'll work for the rest of your life. So those are the things we used to hear. But what about those kids who had a passion for math and engineering, or those kids who wanted to drive really fast, or who wanted to go into space, or who wanted to do things that were non-traditional? You know, we didn't have a lot of examples of that, unless you were in that circle, which I still think in that circle, you still had very few examples of people of color doing those things. Whereas now, I know before Misty Copeland just blew everybody's mind in ballet, you had Alvin Ailey. Now, a lot of people, surprisingly, it was surprising to me, didn't even know about or haven't heard of Alvin Ailey or haven't followed Alvin Ailey. And I guess unless you're in the arts, maybe you wouldn't think about Alvin Ailey. But there's all these different areas. I'm watching Masterclass right now, and I'm enjoying watching Lewis Hamilton. He's a Formula One racer. He's broken every record. He's young guy. He says he's been racing for 28 years. So I'm going to put him, I didn't look him up. So I'm going to put him somewhere between 30 and 32, if that. I don't even think he's really that old. I still think he's like 28. But he is talking about, the challenges he had coming into the sport. And, we had Tiger Woods breaking into the sport of golf, which are they're primarily expensive and primarily white sports. You have people who have just broken records and who have done amazing things. But then we go to the entertainment side, and there's so many women who have broken into and crossed over into things that maybe Black men have done, but it's been still men. And so women haven't gotten that voice. And so we're seeing so many women producers, Shonda Rhimes, and all these people who are doing things that 20, 30 years ago, we always knew was possible, but we just didn't have a good example of it. So I say all that, so I know it sounds like I'm kind of rambling, but I say all that to say this. Even when we're managing our mental wellness, whether you have a mental illness or not, it can be hard to move forward in your dreams if you don't see an example of that. I aimed for Debbie Allen in my early days when I wanted to be in entertainment. I still am in that area, but again, that's a whole other conversation. When my life switched to speaking, and even though I loved Iyanla Vanzant my whole life, I've read all of her books and all of that, I shifted my focus from Debbie to Iyanla when it came to speaking and all of that. When I grew up, there were a lot of examples of what I wanted to do, but most of the people doing them were white. So I also didn't let that stop me either. Let's not get into the box of, well, there's no Black people doing it, so I can't do it. Don't dismiss the action for the packaging, if that makes any sense. Another example of that is Buddhism. I practice Nichiren Buddhism. And I remember doing a paper for class that we had to talk about religion. And I found a wonderful YouTube show that talked about, it had people on there that said, hey, yeah, there are Black Buddhists. Because so many times, and I'll even say it too, I didn't know there were Black Buddhists. There's Black everything. Let me just put that out there for everybody. There is someone of color doing whatever it is you want to do. Now, before I run out of time, I don't want to go too long, but before I run out of time, I also want to kind of touch on thinking about layers, because you don't want to go from where you are to Debbie Allen status, right? Because that can be kind of disappointing. Look around you. Who in your circle, who of your friends is doing what you want to do, or doing it as a hobby, or starting to do that? Look, and then the next level up might be your teachers, or maybe an organization. I know when I joined Toastmasters, I was already speaking, but I wanted to tighten up my speaking. So look in that area and see who's thriving and who's getting that level that you want to be at. So go from here and then go to here and become a superstar here, and then progress so that you can be on the path to get to that superstardom place. I loved the fact that I was able to audition for Debbie Allen. I've said it before, those of you who follow me, I totally blew it, but I got a chance to stand in front of my idol. That's what you want to aim for. I listened to Lewis Hamilton talking about his racing idols and how now he's in a place in his career where they're saying his name in the same breath as the people who he looked up to. Imagine being in that position where you've aimed for something and you're now being considered in the same breath as the people you looked up to. So during this Black History Month, I want my folks that are managing mental wellness, managing a mental illness, to think about, what is it you want to do in this life? What message do you want to send? Again, what is your billboard? And find the people who are doing it at, an exceptional level, and aim for that. Don't let anyone tell you, oh, you'll never be a Misty Copeland. You'll never be a Debbie Allen. You'll never be a Shonda Rhimes. You'll never be an Oprah. Don't listen to them, because that's their limitation. Your limitations should be limitless, actually, because we live in a time when you can do and be whatever you want to be. Get out there on TikTok and find some of the lesser known people too, because just because we've never heard of them does not mean they're not successful. Maybe there is a designer in your area that has a small boutique in your neighborhood and you admire their clothes. Talk to them, find out what they do, how they get their name out there, because obviously if they have a storefront, they're making enough money, hopefully, to maintain that. So find out what people are doing that you want to do and mirror that. Ask them to be your mentor. That's a whole other topic. Don't just go into them and ask them to be a mentor. That's a whole other way to approach that, but that's a whole other topic. So think about that. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. So start acting like the person or the people that you want to be like, and ultimately you will start to be that. Look at their branding, look at how they walk in the world, look at the people they're around, look at the habits they have, look at the things that they do, how they work and how they play. Study the people you want who are doing what you want to do, because that is a great way to reach your goals. All right. I hope I wasn't too rambly. I hope you guys were able to follow me today. My thoughts were kind of all over the place today. That's just how it's been this week for me, but I hope you were able to follow. I hope it was really good information. Again, as always, follow me on Facebook at LP Speak. Follow me at Instagram at LP Speak. And then, of course, go to lpspeak.com, my website, and hold on to your hats. We have the Positive Side of the Bad Stuff podcast coming March of this year. I know I'm just all over the place today, y'all. Maybe I'm just trying to talk too fast. I'm trying to get it all in before my day goes. Anyway, and this is an example for everybody. Just slow it down. Be sure to subscribe to LP Speak on YouTube. That's where you're going to see a lot of these videos and a lot of other videos to come. So go to YouTube and subscribe to LP Speak and look out for the podcast coming in March. And as always, until next time, go, be, do.